Imagine waking up to a $1,000 electric bill and thinking, did I accidentally start a cryptocurrency farm in my sleep? Well, that was me last month, standing in my kitchen in fuzzy slippers, staring at a bill so high it could have powered a small village. Or, as I would soon discover, the luxury golf cart of the HOA president with a serious sense of entitlement. What I didn't know yet was that my quiet little retirement dream home was about to become the battleground for the pettiest, most electrically charged war in suburban history. And at the center of it all, Karen. Yep, that kind of Karen, the type who thinks HOA stands for her own authority. What started as a bizarre spike in my electric bill turned into the perfect opportunity for revenge. A timer, 3 seconds of electricity, and a whole lot of neighborly chaos. When I first bought this house, it felt like the perfect step into a quieter life. After 25 years as an electrical engineer in the defense industry, I was ready to kick back, sip a good scotch, lounge in a hammock, and maybe do the occasional woodworking project in the shed. The neighborhood seemed peaceful. Charming cul-de-sac, perfectly manicured lawns, mailboxes lined up with military precision. It was supposed to be paradise. But paradise, I soon learned, comes with a price. And that price was Karen. She introduced herself on day one with a pamphlet about lawn height regulations and a clipboard full of HOA policies. I smiled, nodded, and assumed she'd fade into the background like most overzealous HOA types. Big mistake. Within a week, I had 3 notices. One for leaving my trash cans out 35 minutes after pickup, another for using the wrong shade of white on my garage trim, and a third for excessive humming while mowing my lawn. That last one wasn't even a rule. Karen just didn't like my rendition of classic rock while landscaping. Still, I tried to be nice. It wasn't until month 2 that things started to get really weird. My electric bill suddenly doubled. I figured it was a billing mistake. After all, I wasn't running a pool heater or a tanning salon. I had smart thermostats, LED bulbs, and solar panels. This wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. So, I called the electric company and spoke to a guy named Tyler, who sounded half asleep until he looked at my usage report. "Sir," he said, "unless you've got a secret space heater the size of a hot tub, something's not right." Curiosity turned into suspicion. As an engineer, I trust numbers more than I trust most people, and the numbers didn't lie. Every night between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., there was a weird spike in usage coming directly from my shed. I hadn't been in there for a week. Nothing was plugged in except a workbench light and an old mini fridge that hadn't held anything but root beer since last summer. I thought it could be faulty wiring, maybe a shore in the panel, but something didn't sit right. So, I set up a camera. And let me tell you, I don't do things halfway. This wasn't a Ring cam stuck to the wall with duct tape. I installed a motion-triggered HD security camera rigged to my home server with real-time alerts. That night, the alert came at 2:13 a.m. I opened the feed and stared at my tablet, slack-jawed. There, in full suburban glory, was Karen, bathrobe, slippers, and all, sneaking into my backyard like she owned the place. She walked straight into my shed, flicked on the light, and unspooled an extension cord. Then she plugged it in her shiny white golf cart, with gold trim and a license plate that read KWEN1. She even whistled while she did it. I watched, frozen in disbelief, as she muttered to herself, "Free power is the best power," before waddling back to her house like it was no big deal. I couldn't believe it. The president of the HOA was stealing my electricity. Not borrowing, not asking, just flat out plugging in her overpriced neighborhood chariot like I was the community charging station. The next morning, I confronted her. I walked up to her pristine lawn, where she was brushing leaves off her driveway with a hand broom. "Hey, Karen," I said calmly. "Fun night last night." She looked up, squinting. "I beg your pardon?" Funny thing. My shed light turned on around 2 a.m., and somehow my security footage caught a mysterious figure with your haircut plugging a golf cart into my outlet. Her face went pale for a second, then twisted into a mix of confusion and indignation. "That's not your outlet," she snapped. "It's behind the property line. It's a common area. It's in my shed. Still, we have shared access per HOA regulations." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "Karen, there's no shared anything. That shed is 22 feet onto my property. Well, you shouldn't be so stingy with your electricity. It's just a golf cart. I just stared at her. I could have lost it right there, but I held back. I knew exactly where this was going. Kara didn't just want to be right. She needed to dominate. And I wasn't going to let her plug her little kingdom into my wall. An hour later, I received an email from the HOA board. Subject, complaint of harassment. According to Karen, I had aggressively approached her with accusations and veiled threats, and she was deeply concerned for her safety. I was formally warned not to engage with her again without HOA supervision. The audacity was almost laughable if it wasn't so incredibly on-brand for Karen. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, though I definitely was, but because I was building something. Something beautiful. Something righteous. I had enough of Karen's smug theft and the HOA's nonsense. And if she wanted electricity so badly, well, she could have it for exactly 3 seconds at a time. The next morning, I woke up with one goal in mind. Figure out how deep Karen's influence ran in this HOA circus. I wasn't just dealing with an annoying neighbor anymore. This was someone who thought she could redefine property lines with sheer arrogance and rewrite the rules on the fly. Her little stunt with the complaint had me flagged by the board without even a chance to explain myself. It became clear that Karen wasn't just a member of the HOA. She was the HOA. And if I wanted to stop her, I had to understand the structure I was up against. So, I attended the next HOA meeting. The clubhouse looked more like a wedding venue than a neighborhood hub, with crystal chandeliers and fake potted plants. Karen sat front and center, flanked by 2 other board members who looked like they'd been carved from the same smug block of granite. When I raised my hand to speak, Karen interrupted me before I could get 5 words out. We will not tolerate baseless accusations during board discussions. If you have a concern, please submit it in writing, she said, waving me off like I was an insignificant fly. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I nodded, sat down, and quietly planned her downfall. I started doing some digging. I learned that Karen had been the HOA president for 7 straight years. Every year, her name appeared on the ballot with no challengers. When I reached out to a few neighbors, most of them laughed nervously. One told me she tried to run against her once, and suddenly her mailbox was deemed non-compliant and had to be replaced at her own expense. Another said Karen fined him for having flamingo lawn decorations. It didn't take long to realize that Karen was using the HOA rules as her personal weapon. One of the rules allowed temporary access to peripheral structures for maintenance observation, but she used it to snoop around sheds, backyards, and even garages. The best part? That rule had been added the same year she bought her golf cart. My lawyer friend laughed when I told him, "You've got yourself a rogue HOA dictatorship, buddy. You need to go full petty." That's when I decided I wasn't just going to stop Karen. I was going to humiliate her. Quietly, elegantly, electrically. I started working on the solution that night in my garage. I still had all my tools from my engineering days, and most of them hadn't seen use since I left the job. I rigged a device with a Raspberry Pi board, a custom relay switch, and a timer module. It would allow exactly 3 seconds of power before cutting off. Perfectly harmless, but incredibly satisfying. And when Karen plugged in her cart again, she would think it was charging, but it would be cut off 3 seconds later every single time. The game had begun.